why being unreasonably optimistic will change absolutely everything in your business and your personal life.
Amen. And I remember when I was the opposite of unreasonably optimistic and things were not going so well in life. So that's a great mindset, value principle that we're going to talk about today that can lead to success in all areas of your life. Is why being unreasonably optimistic will change everything. And I'll just paint you guys a picture. So this is the 08-09 recession, and I'm seeing difficulty everywhere. Real estate investments aren't working out. My business isn't working out, and I'm complaining. I'm whining. It's always someone else's fault. And literally for maybe 2 or 3 years there, times were tough, and it was always someone else. I was not accountable. And when you act like that, failure is just going to encircle you. And I think what's interesting is if you look at the population, like what would you estimate the population is made up of in terms of optimistic people versus pessimistic people? Where do you think that breaks down in today's world?
I mean, I would definitely say more than half of the population is pessimistic or has the survival mindset. They're just doing what they do to get by. They're not out there to try and conquer or achieve more, which I would kind of rope that into the pessimistic side of things. What do you know the math on it?
I don't. I think it's kind of there's a lot of different studies, and I think you're right. I think it is the majority, whether it's 51%, whether it's 60%. And you think about it, the stories that sell, if it bleeds, it leads, is what they talk about in the news, right? So the news media are always sharing almost always negative stories. And so everybody has this perception that the world we live in is a negative world. The government's bad, people are bad, corporations are bad. And so you have all this negative connotation. And then when things go wrong in someone's personal life, then it's so easy to pass the buck off. Well, and then you look at things like what politicians are talking about now. Well, if you were born, of this race or whatever, then everything's stacked against you and you're going to fail. Or if you were born that way, in poverty, you are going to fail. The system's stacked against you. And yet you look at all these stories of people who have achieved enormous success. The majority of them didn't grow up wealthy. They didn't have it easy. But there was something about a principle that they lived by where they were just so unreasonably optimistic. Steve Jobs called it, people called it in Steve Jobs' biography, the reality distortion field. And he had this reality distortion field where we can do these things that people think are impossible. And when you have that mindset, it leads to success. And so, for example, I remember being on a phone call with a client, and he's like, I need $22,000 to do this business or I can't do it. And we applied at 4 different lenders, and he was approved for one at $9,000, and another one declined him, and the other 2 were still pending. And he's like, it's done. I'm not going to get the money. I am so upset. I'm going to give you a 1-star review. And I said, hold on. You still have 2 pending lenders. If you call those and one approves for $10,000 to $15,000, you can do your business. Oh, I guess that's true. Hey, if you call these 2 lenders, I guarantee you've got a great shot at getting that money. He called one, they gave him 17. He ended up with like $26,000, was able to get the business off the ground. And so there's this mentality that you can live by, and you can literally turn the half of the population or more than half that are pessimistic around. And if they start living by that principle, and if you start living by that principle, good things will happen. One of your favorite books, one of mine too, is How to Win Friends and Influence People. And in that book, Dale Carnegie talks about not complaining, not criticizing, and not condemning people. And what do you think are the effects if people actually implement that in their lives?
They're just going to be significantly happier, and they're going to look at the world as a much better place. As you were talking about this, it's one of the core things that you always say when someone's bringing you a problem or an employee's concerned about something. You always say, do your best, forget the rest. And that right there in and of itself, like if you can live by that mentality, do your best, that's literally all you can do. But you've got to actually do your best. You can't half-ass it and say, I did my best, forget about it. If you genuinely do your best, then you have nothing to worry about. You did everything you could. Now it's time to move on and quit bitching about whatever it is that just occurred. And we talked a lot about this in the last episode where it's developing that growth mindset. And if you can develop that growth mindset, then you will become an optimistic person and you will bring others up that are around you.
Exactly. And then that's what's so powerful, right? When you have an unreasonably optimistic mindset of, hey, there's problems, there's always going to be problems, but I'm going to choose to focus on the solutions. I'm going to react against adversity with an optimistic outlook, not in a way where I'm being like naive to the reality of how difficult a situation might be, but I'm going to control what I can control, do your best, forget the rest. And if I do that, then I can live with the results that follow. And the problem is, like you say, in today's society, it's so good to say, well, I did my best when, well, did you really? Did you really? Did you do your best? Did you read the books? Did you ask the questions? Did you, go through programs? Did you watch the YouTube video? Did you go learn from a mentor, someone who's further down the road? If you did everything possible, then you'll always find a way to win. But if you didn't, and then you lie to yourself that you did do your best, then that's where I think you get into trouble. And when you turn this mindset on, you can turn your team around, you can turn your clients around, you can turn your family, and everybody will, instead of having this whining, complaining mindset that leads to failure, it's not very attractive, into I can do it, I'm going to focus on the solutions, I'm going to do everything possible to win, I'm going to keep, not only outwork you, but I'm going to out-improve you, I'm going to out-strategize you, I'm going to outlast you, and if you do those things, your odds for success go way up.
And I think that's so important as leaders, Leo, because emotions are infectious. And if you want to have a positive culture for your business, for your workplace, it starts at the top with the leaders. Because if someone comes in today feeling very down and very negative, and I sit there and I start to bitch and complain with them, that's going to do absolutely nothing. But if I keep that positive attitude and I can uplift that person, then it's a ripple effect. And so it starts with you as leaders. Even if you have to fake it early on, your emotions are infectious and they will infect your team for the good or the bad.